Welcome to Parent Coaches Unleashed, the podcast where we dive into the highs, lows, and did that really just happen moment of parenting teens and young adults. We're Carrie and Jessica, parent coaches, mythbusters, and occasional referees in the battle of hormones versus common sense.
If you've ever wondered, is this just happening to me? You're not alone. We're here to help you with real talk, expert advice, and hopefully a few laughs along the way. Need more support? We also offer private coaching, workshops, and speaking engagements because sometimes even parents don't have all the answers.
So continue listening as we tackle this parenting journey together.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, I feel like I need a new name for you today because we
A
might
new
get,
name?
Jessica, we're
Yeah,
going to have,
we'll get
yeah,
into that. But
yes.
before we do, Carrie, ever have those moments where you say, "Oh my gosh, I sound just like my mom"?
All the time. But sometimes I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like,
Oh, I think my kids will tell you that is not a good thing. But what we did do is this question came up for Carrie and I, and it led us to really thinking about generations and generational parenting. So I didn't have to look too far for this dynamic mother-daughter duo. We have the pleasure of having my sister-in-law and my niece, Leslie Isaacs and Jessica Isaacs, on with us as a guest today. Hi, Leslie. Hi, Jessica.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Just a side note, Carrie, you said, how are we identifying
yes, how are we
each other? So
identifying?
I came onto the scene. Leslie is Lonnie's sister, and I came onto the scene. Jess, what were you? 16, 15? No, you were younger than that because you came
I was
into the
16 at
scene.
your wedding.
You were 60, so maybe you were 14. And they identified us as Big Jess and Little Jess, and I was Big Jess. And I'd prefer not to use those terms today.
So today I'm calling you Biggie. Okay.
All right, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fairness,
so,
big little is a little nicer than older younger.
I don't know.
That was the
I
other
guess
option.
it depends.
Would you like to be senior? Jessica Senior?
No, not
Okay.
no.
Ma'am,
All right,
actually, off to a tangent. My dad's starting to call me ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What? My dad. How did I become ma'am? Anyway, we diverted. All right, let's
okay.
go.
Let's just jump right in here. First of all, I find it really impressive that the both of you are PhDs. Okay. I don't know that happens often. I don't know. But what do you think, Les, I'm going to ask you first. What do you think in your family background? What do you think some of your key values were to led you to such a high aspiration of education?
Education was always important. Number one, it was in our home. It was a non-issue. Everyone was going to seek a higher ed degree of some sort. You know, my parents modeled that. My mother, in her generation, was very unusual. She had 2 master's degrees, which in those days was, I mean, she went to college, and it was unbelievable. Dad is an extremely educated gentleman. They were both educators. It's just it was just second nature. It wasn't a question or a conscious thing. It was just, this is the way it's going to be.
Was that something you would say you carried into your family when you became a mom and started raising your children? Was that something that you were consciously teaching or
As-
valuing or?
I don't think it was a conscious thing. I mean, I was reading when I was pregnant, I was reading I would read my books out loud, my magazines out loud. Music was always by by the babies.
Right.
I read constantly in the supermarket. I remember with Jessica, I remember the first time I took her, she was in those days they called it a snuggly, but the carrier, the front carrier, and I'm walking around with this infant in the supermarket, and I'm picking up I'm picking up the fruits, and I'm smelling it and putting it by her nose, and we're talking, and it's just something, I don't know, just did it, not consciously.
Just okay. Now, Jess, what do you remember about that growing up? What do you remember? Like, do you remember education as a core value? And if not education, what do you remember as your core values growing up?
I think education was more of a manifestation of something else. It just kind of was the end result
Okay.
of being instilled in an early age that we should be tolerant global citizens and always learning. And I think that always learning just happened to turn into all of us enjoying school.
Okay.
But I don't know that that was ever the main point.
Wait, tolerant global citizen.
Oh, wait,
Leslie, is
one
that
word.
a term that
You missed
Kind,
a word. Thank you.
kind.
wait, so was
Kind.
that a word, was that a phrase that you actually used in your house?
Absolutely.
So it was like your
Absolutely.
mantra, like a family
All
Absolutely.
mantra.
the time.
Very
It was
important.
the thesis statement for the home. Mom always kind of came back to that when making decisions, when discussing current events, when dealing with conflict resolution.
Wow. That I've never heard that before. So is that something, Jess, that you teach the girls?
Try to.
Or Leslie, is that something that you're using with your grandchildren?
Yes, absolutely. We raising our kids, I never talked to them like they were little babies. Yes,
Mhm.
verbiage was age appropriate, but I never spoke to them as if they didn't understand what was going on or what the ultimate goal was to be. I do the same thing with our littles. They're cognizant of everything happening
Yeah.
around, just like my kids were when they were growing up. I speak to them exactly the same way as I spoke to my kids growing up.
And I have to say, being around Jessica and watching her raise her girls, it's one of my favorite things about being at Jessica's house is watching the way she talks to her girls. She talks to them like she's on their level. She does not dumb down any conversation. There's no baby talk. Everything is spoken to with great compassion, respect, kindness. It's one of my favorite things about being at Jessica's house. So I
Thank
don't even
you.
have to ask you that question. I know you do it.
Well, I think it's a little different. I'd be curious if I'm allowed to ask a question to my
Yes.
mother and the two of you, because I feel like we sort of span a few generations. And I remember being a child and current events would come up. I mean, the first kind of really big one that I remember was the Oklahoma City bombing, but I remember learning about it from my parents as opposed to from the news or from a pop up on an iPhone or a peer. Whereas now my children are coming home from school with more information than I have because I've been behind a desk all day and I don't check the notifications on my phone and I don't have the news open. So I feel like, I don't know, Mom, were you more prepared sometimes to have those discussions because you were aware you were going to have them beforehand, as opposed to me getting blindsided during pickup with questions that I was not prepared to discuss that day?
Yes. And, well, granted, in today's world, technology is all over the place. I mean, my granddaughters pick up the phone and they will FaceTime me without mom or
Oh,
dad
yes.
knowing.
Mhm.
I mean, and that's all my little ones, which is very interesting. That's something different. So in today's world, you're absolutely right. I think the kids, fortunately, sometimes unfortunately, do have access to information that might be a little over their heads
Mhm.
to really fully grasp what's going on, especially in today's climate. Um, Although my husband and I always felt that it was important for them to get the information in a proper manner, in a straight to the facts, answer any questions they had, and then move forward, but not have them in front of television with the news going on, constantly bombarding them. Today, I understand that, because kids, little ones, have access to different types of media in different modes, it's a little more difficult.
Sure.
Yeah, I think as moms, sometimes we have to be able to just come up with something on the fly because you can't always be prepared. You never know when they're coming at you with something. It might be something really small and cute and funny, or it might be something large like a major event. But I feel like it would be okay to say, wow, that's a really good question. Let's get back to that later. Let mom have a minute. Let me do a little research, or let's research that together. So I know our kids sometimes want these immediate answers, but I think it's okay for us to say, I don't know. Let
Sure.
me get back to you. Because the worst thing you want to do is lie or, be so taken back that you say something maybe you didn't mean just to give them an answer because they're looking for an immediate response. So I think the difference in the generations in parenting that I see is that immediate need for answers and access to information.
Jess, I think that's a really good question. And the first thing for me that comes to mind is 9/11. I was teaching in a classroom when 9/11 happened. And I had a student who lost his dad that day. However, there were no smartphones, so nobody had that instant information. I can't imagine in today's world in a teaching setting when you have like all these phones going off at once with an alert. I never thought about that just from a classroom perspective, that challenge of the immediate news notifications. That day on 9/11, it gave the teachers and the administrators the time to reach out to everyone's families to see how their kids were getting home, to make sure that there were no TVs on when they got home, to make sure that the parents had a chance to talk to their kids first, especially for kids whose parents were working in the trade centers that day. For my own kids, we would have lengthy discussions at dinner time about whatever current events were going on. And I feel like it really started around presidential elections. And I think um, my kids were experiencing probably what everybody is now, the beginnings of the divisiveness in our country, and listening to people who supported different candidates. And our kids knew where we stood, but they had friends coming to them with all different opinions. And Lonnie's first reaction was, I wasn't in elementary school or middle school discussing politics with my friends. It's just so interesting what technology has done for communication. And what we always said to our kids is, this is our opinion, this is why. But listen to your friends and don't make opinions based on what they're saying. Read the information that's out there before you form an opinion. And it's okay to have a different opinion. You just have to be able to back it up and understand why you're choosing that as your opinion. So I don't know. Did we answer your original question, Jess?
I think so. I think so. It gave me more thoughts. My kids are younger, so they are not necessarily forming their own opinions about world events yet. They're more, what kind of mac and cheese do I like? Or do I like chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream better?
Well, listen, it might not be political, but your girls definitely are forming their own opinions.
Correct, but I want them to form their own opinions
Yes.
and not be influenced by the conversations we have at home. And that's something, as they're getting older and as they're repeating or mimicking or starting to form opinions, I want to make sure I'm instilling the core values and not instilling my own beliefs onto them so that they can make their own decisions about insert
I,
whatever here.
I want to say that is a very thin line. And I just really appreciate that you're taking the time to recognize that while raising your girls. I mean, I think if every parent did that, the world would be a much better, kinder, compassionate place.
Yeah.
Listen, it's a
And
thin line. We're at the ice cream place, and my little one asks for coffee ice cream because that's mommy's favorite. You don't like coffee ice cream. Tell what you like.
Right,
that's
right.
cute. So, since we're talking about technology, I would love to hear both of your perspectives on whether you think technology and social media has helped or hurt the parent child communication.
Jess?
Well, it sounds like, Les, you had a positive. It
I
doesn't matter where grandparents and kids live these days because you can see each
I have
other.
to tell, yep. And I have to tell, it's interesting. Today, I mean, I am a very, very, very lucky grandparent because
Wait, Les,
we
how
have
many
faced,
grandkids? Tell us
we have four grandchildren,
ages.
So, um, Jessica's girls are 6.5 and 3.5. Daniel and Yael's kids are 7 and almost 5. Almost 5. She'll be 5 shortly, so almost 5. We FaceTime
Yeah.
all the time. When I was raising the kids, we had the telephone, and yes, you say hi to grandma and grandpa. Say hi to Grammy and Papa. They had the phone call. When they got a little older, it was a chat, but it was nothing like today. Nothing. Granted, there's nothing like physically being together. I mean, the greetings that Rich and I get when we see those little ones, they come lying out of the house. It's like, and they don't leave us alone. And then they've had enough. But that initial, I can't explain to you how it's the most exciting feeling. You feel like the greatest person on earth
Like you're a
or anywhere in
celebrity.
the world. It's great. So from my perspective, technology to me it has been a very big plus.
Now, Jess, do you see it as a positive or a negative while raising the girls? Are they into
I'm
technology yet or
I'm conflicted, very conflicted because in some regards it's amazing. FaceTime. I mean, I remember being a kid and until my grandmother died, she would rush me off the phone because she was convinced there were long distance minutes and she didn't want to waste them. Like that's
I think
not
Papa
a
still
thing
thinks
anymore.
that.
I think Papa's better at it though.
He's better. He's better. Why he has he has FaceTime down. It's great.
That's
Mhm,
awesome.
mhm.
So what's the negative for you?
More so the social media aspect. And again, there are pluses and minuses. I found a group of mom friends when my oldest was a baby through Facebook, like a neighborhood Facebook group.
Mhm.
We all had kids around the same age. Somebody posted a question. It turned into a park meetup. We're all still friends. Now we're navigating the school system together over a Facebook group chat. And these women now, people live all over the country. Most of us are not in Philadelphia anymore. So, in that regard, it's fantastic. But then you have the same side to that coin where you are comparing yourself to others, where you see the mom influencers or the very curated social media posts and compare yourself. Well, my house doesn't look like that. My kids don't dress like that. My 3-year-old picked out her own outfit and it certainly does not match. Thank goodness it's weather appropriate. And I have a hard time because I don't know how to feel because I feel
Right.
very conflicted.
Yeah.
Then yeah, it's getting into the comparisons, which is what you don't want your kids to get into, but this one's doing that and it just I think we have to take social media with a grain of salt and just realize that those are only snippets of people's lives. It's not their whole truth.
So, do you think that as a parent, you're feeling more supported or isolated with the availability for social media? Jessica, that's directed towards you?
Both.
Both.
Again,
Okay.
I feel the dichotomy of it. I mean, I think back to when my kids were really, really little, newborns, and I was on a bunch of lactation support groups, and they were fantastic. But then I'm also seeing people post photos of their freezer stash of milk and not feeling adequate enough. Why couldn't I pump that much? Which, by the way, is not even a thing. You don't need that much.
Right.
Um, and it was so helpful in some ways, but so hurtful to my mental health in other ways.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have the benefits without also being exposed to some of those negatives. So I think we need to be really mindful of setting up boundaries for ourselves and for our kids. And I don't know
Absolutely.
what that looks like yet, because again, my
Right.
kids are
It's
pretty little. And, growing up, we didn't have social media. Facebook, I was one of the first Facebook people when it came to my college campus and you needed the college email address.
mm,
So we're kind of navigating it now. How old does a child need to be to get a
mhm.
social media account? Yes, there are certain ages, within these different applications, but
I
if
mean,
anybody
it's
remembers
pretty
back to
easy.
AOL
Yeah.
chats, we
Yeah.
lied about our age all the time. So
All of the data and all of the research is saying push it off for as long as you can. Whatever that looks like in your house, but just the longer you can wait, the better it is. I actually just saw an article about a mom. I feel like the kids were in 6th grade. She went back to landlines and she encouraged daughter's her daughter's friends' moms to get them landlines so that they can talk that way because they were all on the same page about not having smartphones yet, but they still wanted to communicate. So they went back to just talking on landlines, which I thought
I think
was
that's great.
yeah.
I think it's great. I remember in our house, get when I was growing up, my mom bought the longer telephone cord so you could sit at the table or get to the refrigerator or something to that effect. That was a big deal.
Or you can pull it around. Like we had a kitchen phone that had the long cord, so I could go around to the other room to have a little privacy
Or
on my
sense
phone
of
call.
privacy.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
sense of privacy, right? Like,
I will say, though, I hear what you're saying, Jess, about comparing and the positives and the negatives. As raising raising a family and not being near family, I felt very isolated, and I found that to be the most difficult part of raising a family, not having family close by, down the block, or in not having to drive hours and hours, or not having to fly, things like that. I wish I had, you had groups, but I was lucky enough, in my view, for me, I was very lucky for my generation, to be able to stay home. I always worked part-time, but I was able to stay home to raise my children for a number of years. Um, where my friends were, they had the nannies at home, so I would hang out with kids with the nannies. I don't know, I wish I had some
some
Facebook or
access. Yeah, some
Right.
access
something.
to
interesting to me because I have a slightly different perspective. Growing up, I felt like while it wasn't a built-in family support system, we had friends, we had neighbors that played a really big role in sort of our daily lives. And it felt like that was a built-in support system for us and for you.
You are correct, and that those chosen family members, you are right. We were all in the same situation, away from family. We had all moved for whether it was work or grad school or whatever. And yes, you are correct, and we are still friends with all these years later. We are still very close. Um, you're right. I guess it looked different, but there's still a difference between calling your mother, your father, your guardian, your sister. It's different than calling even that very close friend for certain situations. I, and those people were raising their own kids also, you know.
That's
So
that's
yeah,
really interesting. It's interesting because, Les, you grew up with family close to family. I mean, right? Your grandmother was only a few blocks away from you. So I imagine that was a very different dynamic for you raising your kids not having that support.
I saw my grandmother every single day for lunch during elementary school, and my grandfather was there until he passed away. And then, yes, and even my father's parents were around, and we saw them every single weekend,
Right.
um, every single weekend until then they eventually passed away. So yes, it was very different,
And did
very
that play
different.
a role for you and Rich deciding where to raise your family? Did that ever come into play for you guys? No, it was just
No.
about what was best for you guys at the time.
Well, Rich graduated and his first job was in Philadelphia. And then when I graduated, in those days, he didn't go home. You know, my
Right.
kids, they always knew you always have a place in, out, and that was fun. But that very different time, I wasn't going home. So our older brother said, "Oh, come, stay down here." He was in medical school in Philadelphia, and I went and lived with him. And then Rich and I met, and it was,
You told them
uh,
you were getting married and the rest was history.
yeah, I said, Rich, are we getting married or what? And yes, boy, we just celebrated 43 years later.
That's
So,
amazing.
Congratulations. Yeah. And what
thank you.
about you, Jessica? Was that a consideration for you before you started your family, the distance to your parents or your spouse's parents?
Yes and no. I will say, growing up, I didn't know any different. I didn't
Mhm.
have the cousins that I would see every weekend. It was always for, special big events, which was nice. It gave us something to look forward to. Circling back to the social media, that's why I have a relationship with a lot of my cousins from text messages or being the cool big cousin on Instagram when they would not be so smart and post pictures of a party that they weren't supposed to throw, and me letting aunts and uncles know what was going on.
It's important for you to be near grandparents.
I mean, I would like to be. I keep bugging my parents to get a place back east, Pied-à-Terre, so they are close by. Because it's nice to have somebody to have a little mental health break or just go stop over to their house and get a cup of coffee with no pretenses and not feeling like you have to perform.
But
Um,
you are close by to Ryan's family.
right. So it did, when we moved out of the city into the suburbs, that was a big decision. So Philadelphia, would we be on the Pennsylvania side, would be on the New Jersey side. And from point A to point B on either side, it's a pretty far distance. It's about an hour drive in the two kind of locations that we were looking at. And we ultimately chose where to live based on the vicinity to my spouse's family and parents.
Right. Okay.
And for us, living so far away, in a drop of a hat, the kids know Rich and I, or just I have done this. I've
Mhm.
received a phone call at 10 o'clock in the morning, Mountain Time. I would land back east, midnight, whatever, that same day if they needed me or Rich or something. For us, we love that our kids are close to family. We are the luckiest people for our children to pick the greatest partners. They're fabulous. So we are happy that they are close to family. It's not specifically us, but at least they're there
There,
for
right.
whatever.
And how close are they, Mom? How close is my brother to his in-laws?
Daniel and Ellen and the kids are right next door, like
They bought the
next
house.
door. My big.
Like, do they
well,
share a wall next door or?
Well, they're single homes, but it's, my Big Fat Greek Wedding, the movie, and at the very end, the parents bought the couple the house right next door. That's right next door, yes. So we're very happy about that. We're really happy. We love that. It's so funny when we go visit. Well, Jessica can tell you.
You
When
don't
we
know
go visit,
where anybody is, which house. You just kind of walk.
you just go.
both houses.
I'm in the middle of cooking. I said, "Oi!" I said to Elle, "Do you have whatever it might be?" Goes, "Oh, 1 second." I hear footsteps. The door open, close. 2 seconds later, I hear door open, close, footsteps. Here you go. It's great. It's very funny. Well, Ryan, I will tell you, I'll never forget. They moved to their new home, this beautiful home, and I get a call from Ryan one day, and Ryan calls. It's not unusual for him to call me. So he calls. He said, "So Liz, I have a thought." I said, "What?" He says, "A question, really." I said, "What?" He said, "How would you feel about moving right next door to us?" I said, "So I'm thinking," and when we moved out here, we downsized. Boy, did we got rid of everything. I wanted something smaller. He said, "The house right next door is going up for sale." For a nanosecond, I was like, "Oh, I should tell Rich." And then I said, "Oh, Ryan, really?" But that would have been interesting. I'm sure if we lived next door to each other, it might be a little different. I don't have the energy I had when I was young. I know Jessica will tell you, "No, Mom, you're fine." I get tired sometimes now. And I have a lot of energy.
Not often, but sometimes.
Not often, but I have to tell you, like the whole crew. Unfortunately, Alison couldn't join us. Also, she was starting a new job, but the rest of the crew was here for a long period of time, for a week. Everybody, and the kids are working. I had the littles. Rich took some time, and and it was a lot. And I have to tell you, by the time after we dropped, because the last to leave were Jessica and the girls. And I tell you, I'm driving, because I drove. We took my car, so I'm driving home, and I looked at Rick. I need to just lay down for a sec. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And as long as I have the energy and can do these things. Like when the girls, the adult women, excuse me, when they went back to work and they were nursing moms and had to do business trips or whatever, or I was the nanny, and I had the luxury of being able to go travel with them and take care of the babies while they did their thing, and I would bring, and you go nurse and this, and I'll take the baby back. It's a lot of fun.
You are
Where was
very
the
lucky.
furthest place I took you, Ma?
The which one?
Where was the
furthest one.
furthest we went?
Oh, we went to Slovenia. We went to Slovenia. We went to, what was that, Osprey in Nashville? We went to California.
My mother has traveled a lot with me and taken care of my children for me so I could work.
That's a
fabulous job. Like, I might want to apply for that job.
Oh God, it was great. And then, as the girls, they're getting older. So the last trip, and Rich was able to come with me. Jessica was asked to give a talk in Barcelona, and Ryan went with her. So we got to watch the girls at home, in their home. Oh, I won't say why. I'm sorry.
First time, my children are 3.5 and 6.5. That is the first time my spouse and I both left. We've both been on tons and tons of business trips, but always one of us has been home with the kids. That's the first time we were both gone for a week.
How lucky
and
you
how
are
did that feel? Yeah, how did you?
Oh yeah, Jessica, how did that feel? Tell them when you came home, what all the things that happened.
My house was really clean. My kids were really happy. I managed to break them of everything within a couple days. My mom had them going to sleep by themselves, bathing themselves. Yeah, within like 3 days, we were
taking dishes to the sink, helping load the dishwasher and unload the dishwasher. Their beds were made every single morning. The little one was potty trained full time during the day. Pull ups at night. That's fine.
She still is. That we did not go back on.
Right. That was very good. That's right. But we had a ball, but it's different. The parents leave. It's totally different. It's
right.
Jess,
was there ever a question if you were going to go back to work or not? Was that ever no?
Never.
You were always going. By choice or necessity or both?
Both. A bit both. Now, work did look a little different after I went back, especially with my oldest. I went back part-time.
Okay.
So I went back initially 50% time and then went up to 75% time. And I was actually 75% time through the beginnings of COVID. And I don't remember when I went back to full-time, but we were all working from home. Daycare reopened, so I decided to go back full-time. But that was an experience. It, you know, it's tough. It's tough to have two working parents who work outside the home full time hours. I'm in consulting, so my hours are chaotic and
Right.
very much client services focused. So
Okay.
it is not uncommon for me to take calls late at night or on the weekends or have a very last minute business trip. So it's a lot of juggling.
And how have you seen the gender role, so the mother and father role between your two generations change, given also that you both, Jessica and your husband, are working? So, do you see differences and or what the expectation you thought was going to be about each the mother father role? I'd be interested in both of your perspectives on that.
I feel like growing up, so both my parents worked. My mother was a teacher, so kind of on the same schedule as the kids. But I feel like growing up looking externally facing as well, not only in our own home, but the moms were almost expected to carry the bulk of the parenting,
Yep.
even if they also had a full-time job.
Mhm.
And, the dads were involved, but it always seemed to be a little bit more in the background. Maybe that's because they traveled for work or they had longer hours or whatever it may be. But I like to think it's shifted now, the thought process. At least it has in my house. Parenting is much more of a partnership and the expectations are a little bit more balanced. So, like in my house, that means that my spouse and I both kind of show up for the daily routines, the discipline, the emotional support. It looks different. We have to structure everything differently. We have offset our work hours so that somebody is with the kids and we're able to function in that way. It's a little chaotic. So while we are partners, we're not necessarily next to each other doing all the things, but I don't cook. I just never like doing it. It's not my thing. The stuff doesn't really turn out well. So, he is in charge of cooking the dinners and making the lunches. I am capable of doing it. He's been on a business trip all week. We are all fed. We are not eating takeout every night, Mom. Don't worry. It's just not what I like to do.
Okay.
So we divide and conquer, and I'm sure that will evolve as my kids get older. But it's very much we try and
It
come to
sounds like
agreement.
a team effort.
Mhm. I think we're
Team
forced
effort.
to with our chaotic schedules. You're almost forced to.
I think that's one thing I think is really important about your generation, having that shift moving forward to share
Mhm.
everything equally, all responsibilities in the house, especially with more and more two job households. I think it's really important to share the rest of the responsibilities, that it doesn't all fall on one person.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just
Let's
need him to learn how to brush hair. He's really not good at that, and my kids won't let him brush their hair.
There's something called YouTube, and he might wanna watch a video on how to do it. Actually, the girls could probably show him how.
That's funny. Now, you know, for me, I was the generation of super mom. You had to do everything. And Rich's hours before we moved out here, he would come home after 11 o'clock at night. He would have to leave 5 o'clock in the morning to get to where he was going and doing, and the weekends we had to catch up on everything. It was, and he will be the first one to tell you, that the kids and the house, that was my responsibility for the most part. And he was a great dad. He was one of the dads who did, well, it's AKA, what was that called, Jess? Indian,
Oh, Indian
AKA,
Princess.
because it's a new name, Indian
Right.
Princesses and Indian Guides.
Yep.
He was very much involved with that because he wanted to do something special with the kids, just one-on-one with them. He would, when they were little, Rich would take them, I'd leave. If I had the older ones, I'd take them with me to school, and he would take whoever was left to the supermarket and do that and have lunch ready when we came home. I mean, that was a big deal in those days because I was one of the very lucky people because I was teaching full time, raising the kids, raising my husband, taking care of him,
And going to school.
That was
and going to school. And at the time we had one computer, so the kids had that computer first. So I get everything all done, everybody to bed, including Rich, because he had to get up so early, and that's when I started my work. I did all my typing was at night, and I'd try and get to bed between 1:30 and 2:30, wake up between 4 and 4:15 to do my reading. My kids, and Jessica will tell you, little Jessica will tell you that they had a hot breakfast every single morning. I made their lunches for them. It was crazy.
Did you ever want to raise the red flag or say help, I can't do it? Or was that not even an option in your head?
I'm laughing. As time passed, I don't know, Jessica, if you remember, the kids were older and
when you went on strike?
When I went on strike.
Yep.
You remember? How old were you? I don't even remember when. I had it. Rich was able to debrief. He would drive. Granted, he had the driving was horrible. Driving Philadelphia area.
He was able to leave work behind.
He had that time to
decompress. Yeah.
I never had that. I never had that. And it got to a point, it was probably something so silly. Something silly, like maybe a dish was left out, or I don't know. I will tell you, my kids always put toilet paper on a toilet paper roll, but it would have been something like that to just set everybody off. And I just had enough. And I think I took the lawn chair and I put it on the front lawn and just sat there and that was it. And am I right? I did something like that, but I did. I went on strike once.
Now, Jess, can you remember what that was like as a child watching that? Or I don't know how old you were, but.
I was older. I feel like I was in high school for that because I remember it and I remember thinking oh, this isn't going to affect me. I'm just going to go to Wawa and get a hoagie for dinner. It wasn't a huge thing.
Okay.
I will say it set me up for unrealistic expectations of what I could do myself versus what I needed to outsource or ask for help.
Yeah.
I felt really guilty and had a really hard time for a really long time that I couldn't do it all. I just couldn't. And
because you saw your mom doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had less on the table. I was thinking, well, I'm done school. My mom was in graduate school for quite a long time when we were growing up. I didn't have that. Okay. We both had full-time jobs. I had less kids. She had 3 of them. I probably had 1 at the time, maybe 2. I had a spouse that helped and helped a lot. And I was drowning and my house was a mess. And yeah.
Yeah. I can feel for you. I had a same feeling for my mother, but my part was that my mom made it look so easy. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure she hid all of her real, true emotions and struggles. But that was a really difficult part for me as a younger parent because I didn't want anyone to know that I was struggling and I felt like a failure. She made it look so easy. This is so difficult. And at the time, my mom's no longer with us, but she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so it really wasn't like I could even talk to her about it to get some sort of validation. Please tell me this was really more difficult than you made it look, but I didn't have that. So I can feel just your struggle with that really, really high expectation. And I don't know, Leslie, if you want to chime in, but I don't know that that's as a parent now, our expectation isn't to make it look that way. It's just
from the super mom, I will tell you, it truly, the saying or the terminology that it takes a village is so true. And I, unfortunately, for me, Rich, I had no money. I was a public school teacher, Rich, an engineer. We had no money. We had all these kids. It was very important to send them to sleepaway camp in the summer and give them what we could. but we worked really hard, and so we didn't have the money for me to have help cleaning my house. That's something I have to be honest. I know Rich yells at me all the time. So did the kids, Jessica especially. Mom, get somebody to clean your house. I'm still cleaning my house. I shouldn't be cleaning my house at this point in my life, honestly. But
I think you like it. I think in some weird way, it's your yoga.
Maybe.
Nah.
I
like a clean house, but But
have you? No, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, it is a shame that supermom period of time happened. I have to be honest with you. That's a downfall of my generation. I think I truly.
But seeing you go on strike, I mean, as hysterical as it was, really kind of showcased that. Oh, okay. She did not have this all together. She's going a little kooky there. Let's take a little mental health break and reevaluate.
I'm really curious, though. Is this a conversation you two have had about it? Did you ever show or tell your mom how much more you appreciated what she went through as you started going through it? Or did you ever say, how did you get all of this done? Did you ever have that conversation?
Maybe not as explicitly, but yes. And I don't think, Mom, you really got it. Like, you were just kind of, I don't even know if you remember how you answered me, but you were just kind of downplaying what you did. Well, I was just a teacher. Well, I had off all summer. Well, I had shorter hours. Well, I didn't travel like you travel. It was always kind of comparison, but not. I don't know. You were downplaying your role, so I truly don't
to make it look like you had it harder than she did.
Correct.
Because of.
Correct. And I don't know if that was to make me feel better or, Mom, you truly just don't understand the massive amount of responsibilities that you took on yourself.
I don't know.
Or maybe she was having a really hard time accepting a compliment.
Do you know my mom?
You know.
Oh my God. No, I have to tell you, I've told Jessica, I admire how she has evolved into a wonderful human being, an incredibly fantastic parent and partner. It's wonderful. It's just.
Did you think
wonderful.
That was going to happen in my wonderful teenage years when I was driving?
Oh my God!
Wait,
Carrie, you don't. Yes, Jessica knows this. Carrie, you don't know this. My Jessica, my lovely Jessica, and we've gone through a lot in all these years together, knowing each other. And I used to say to my lovely adult child, who's the greatest mother on earth, that I hope and pray that you have a daughter just like yourself. Right?
Yeah.
And I didn't yell. I just took a breath. I have to say, well, you know what? Some of their things, they're not as intense as you are. I have to be honest with you, dear.
Oh,
They're
she's
still
young.
Well, they still have time.
That's
still
true.
a long way to go.
But it's so funny when, I have to tell you, when the older one says certain things to her, and Jessica looks at me, and I have to be careful because I'm dying. Rich just cracks up because he's like, "Oh my God, your wish came true." That's your wish.
I will say, I do think it helps me parent a little bit better because I remember there were some undiagnosed neurodivergencies going on, which now are a little bit easier to recognize and deal with. So I think I empathize with my children a little bit more.
That's why you were picked to be their mom. Les, I think we all felt that way when we found out that Jessica was pregnant. We were like, what's this going to be like? And I said it before, it is one of my greatest things about being with your family is watching Jessica parent. I mean, I think she just does such a fabulous job at it. Really.
Thank
And
you.
I
I
have
do
to
too.
tell you that Ryan always, when we're sort of talking about how to raise the kids and as they're getting older and what type of relationship do we want to have with them, Ryan always, hands down, points to you and Uncle Lonnie. Always. I mean,
Look, it's
your
like we're
kids I have
having a
such a great
little love
relationship
fest.
with.
It is. Yeah, but Carrie, I
Thank
have
you.
to tell you, it is true. And it's what's interesting when my kids were growing up, because Lonnie is so much younger than the rest of us. Because it's we have our older brother, it's me, we have a younger sister, and then Lonnie came along, and so Lonnie's relationship with our children,
Mhm.
is a very interesting and very special one. And Jessica is part of the package. We're lucky to have
Big
Big Jessica as
Jessica.
part of the package. But Lonnie is the special uncle.
Mm.
And same with my older brother's kids, and same with my sister's kids. They all the kids say that. But my children always made sure that, like with their cousins and with now the other kids, they want to have that same special relationship. So like Lonnie and my other two siblings, we had that type of relationship with our Uncle Jerry, who was my mother's brother. Lonnie has that stature in the family,
Mm.
and all the kid that it's very interesting.
The
I mean,
age
I'm
difference.
substantially
Right.
older than your kids,
Than my
Jess. I
kid,
mean, I
yeah.
remember when Avery was born, it was my 18th birthday, and we came and visited you guys in New York. Why
That's
did
right.
you let us come and stay? I don't know if we stayed with you, or I just remember taking a nap in your
You
bed.
slept in my
You had,
bed. Yes, I had a yes.
and you had a newborn, and then we went to see Rent on Broadway, and that was my
That's right.
birthday. But now
That's
I'm
right.
looking back, I'm like,
That's right.
why did you let us do
You know, the one thing that Lonnie and I shared were these strong family values, and
Right.
you never said no to family. I think that's another thing your generation is getting better about is boundaries. We didn't when it came to family, if they were
Mhm.
coming over, you just said, okay, it wasn't you could no wasn't an option. For example, the night Lonnie and I got engaged, the one thing he said to me was, just so you know, my whole family is going to be in the bridal party. And Carrie, his whole family, like brothers, sisters, their spouses, and all of their children walked down the aisle with us. I mean, it was just a non-negotiable. It was, and it's so funny because when Lonnie and I first got together, for me, I came from my family. We had just recently lost my dad, and my family was all up in each other's faces. We were together all the time. And if we weren't together, we were on the phone. I spoke to my mom 5, 10 times a day, and it would drive Lonnie crazy how much we spoke. But on the flip side, I was like, how could you say you're close with your family? You don't live near them. You speak to them maybe once a week, once every other week. But it just goes to show you that every family looks different because Lonnie has such a unique, special relationship with every one of his siblings and with all of his nieces and nephews. But I also think the age difference that you guys have was able to provide that because he wasn't married. He had no kids when all of his nieces and nephews were born. So he was able to go to birthday parties and go to soccer games and go to plays and whatever else there was.
He took
And
me
I
to my
think also
first
being
concert,
Oh my
right,
God, that's right.
but I also
Billy
think
Joel.
be being the youngest also allowed him to have a special relationship with each of his siblings because each
Mhm.
sibling will tell you that they had a hand in raising Lonnie
Mhm.
because of the
Mhm.
age difference.
Mhm.
So,
So, would this be like the one, if we had to pinpoint one takeaway for people listening, right, in families, different generations, like, is this the one thing that remains consistent and that you guys would recommend from, as you're passing down ideals and morals and cultures to your children, like the importance of family, to embrace it, to work on your relationships, whether they're close or far away? Like, it feels like to me, that's what I'm hearing in everything that we've talked about. What do you guys
And
think about that?
I
If
would
there's one
edit
thing.
that. Sorry. I would
No,
edit
no.
that a little bit to say chosen family. We're
Okay.
really lucky. We have an amazing blood relation family, and some people don't have that, and that's okay too. You can still have those same connections and create your own family. It might just look a little different.
It just goes back to something we touched on earlier. It takes a village, the importance to find
Mhm.
your community so you don't have feelings of isolation. And Jessica, like you said, so you have people to run things off of,
Mhm.
just people that you're going through the same journey with at the same time.
Yeah.
So I just have to ask Leslie this question as per Lonnie's request. For our listeners, if you go back a few episodes, the last time Carrie and I had Ken and Lonnie on, I believe the question was, how do you deal with bullying? And Lonnie gave a real life scenario about how he told his nephew, who happens to be Leslie's son, Daniel, he told Daniel when he was being bullied on the bus, he said, how are you dealing with it? And Daniel said, I told the teacher. And Lonnie said, tell the teacher. Who told you to do that? And he's like, my mom. He's like, no, you go up to the kid and you punch him and he will never bother you again. That was Lonnie's stance on bullying. So, Les, what was your reaction to your brother when he told Daniel that piece of
I am
advice?
not a violent person. I'm not. I wanted to kill him. I was like, are you kidding me? You've got to be kidding. And I said, Lonnie, we don't handle things. And then, the teacher voice and the teacher kicked in Daniel. Anyway, I almost died. Although I have to say, Lonnie, Daniel did stick up for himself, and the kid never came near him again. So I had to eat my words and say, okay, Lonnie, you were right. I have to say you were right. Anyway, the kid never
Right.
bothered him
Yeah,
There's
again.
no
that.
proof it actually really happened.
Hypothetically.
I wasn't
Hypothetically
thrilled.
disagreeing.
I wasn't thrilled, but Rich was like, yes, good going. Just like Lonnie said. Anyway, the kid, he was never bothered again. So,
Listen, Uncle Lonnie gave me some really good advice when I went to college also that my mom probably
what?
didn't agree with.
Yeah, which one? What did he say? I forgot.
Something about drinking water and what types of beer to drink. I don't actually remember, but it was helpful at the time.
This is great. Well, this has been so enjoyable, but would you guys play along real quickly as we come to an end? We want to try something new with our podcast, and we want to call it the lightning round. So we're just going to ask you a quick few questions and just say the first thing that comes to mind. No, big story, just shout it out so we have a quick
Wait, Les, can you
reminder
do
here.
that? Are you okay?
Yes, I promise.
Okay.
Okay. Quick.
All right, and maybe we'll go one at a time so you're not both. All right. So, Leslie, one word to describe your parenting style.
Involved.
Okay. Jessica, most used phrase you say as a parent.
Do you need to urinate?
That's a good one. All right. Jessica, parenting advice you ignored but wished you hadn't.
That the goal isn't to do everything.
Where did she go?
I don't know.
All right, I'll ask Leslie the question then. Okay. Leslie, parenting advice you ignored but wished you hadn't.
Nothing. No one ever gave me parenting advice. This parenting thing, no handbook, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And nobody gave me advice, I have to be honest.
Okay.
I've been navigating this. My poor kids. On Mother's Day, Jessica will tell you, Mother's Day, I used to give my kids presents because I thought it was important for them to understand that how they survived with me as their mother.
Okay. Jessica, one thing you do exactly the same as your mom.
Show up for my kids.
I love that one.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So
Okay, as we close out and get ready to say goodbye, I'm just Les, what would you say to Jessica about her parenting?
Keep doing what you're doing.
And Jess, what would you say to your mom about her parenting
Move
and
closer.
grandparenting?
Move closer.
Oh,
Stop trying
oh,
to
yeah,
do it all.
Okay. Well,
Um,
this was so much fun. Thank you
this
both.
was fun.
It was. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation. This was fun.
yeah, this was a pleasure. I loved getting to know both of you. So thank you so much
Carrie, does
for
this
being
enlighten who
real.
Jess is a little bit more that she married into our family? We're a little
Yeah,
cuckoo.
so
We're a
I've
little cuckoo.
gotten a fair share of dose of Lonnie, right? They've stayed in our house now a few times. So like I had a big understanding already of his love for his family and his family involvement. So no, it's just been a pleasure. So thank you guys for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to meet with us today, and to all of our listeners. Thank you. Listen, like, share, whether it's with your own parents or moms that have daughters that are parents. And thank you again for listening. If you would love to reach out, you can email us at info@parentcoachesunleashed.com. And please follow us on Instagram. Same name, Parent Coaches Unleashed. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed with Carrie and Jessica. Together, we can raise the next generation of independent, capable, and compassionate young adults.
We encourage you to send us an email with questions and feedback to info@parentcoachesunleashed.com. Please remember, you are not alone on this parenting journey.